Hello there and welcome back to Books and Things with Joan. I'm Joan and it's a pleasure. I know I always say it's a pleasure, but I think I'm going to get a synonym for pleasure. I think I'm in awe to have you back here. I've been very unstable over the past month, and like I said, life happens. We make plans, but life happens. I'm just glad that I can struggle to put out videos every week, even though they're a little bit late, and I apologize for that, but I'm just happy I can still put out content. And like I said last week, the book I was struggling to finish is this beautiful book by Mohandas Gandhi, and it's just basically a book about his life and his experiences, and from South Africa to India to the UK. Like, it's just a book about his life and his experiences, and trust me, it's a beautiful book. It's more of a non-fiction book that feels like a fiction book, because you can't believe it's like a story but non-fiction because it's somebody's life. So it's very beautiful and I enjoy every single page I read. Do I need to give an introduction of Mohandas Gandhi? Is there somebody here that doesn't know who he is? Okay, for those who don't know, Mohandas Gandhi is basically the godfather of modern India. He had certain ideas that were the bedrock of developing India today. He stood for very firm principles which were focused on the Indian community and Indians as a whole. And it was based on moral principles that normally people know are right, but they don't practice. It was based on love, it was based on equality, it was based on service to others and not amassing wealth for oneself. So it's a book about how he evolved into this, not just lawyer, not just a political figure, but also a spiritual leader. Because it's hard today to have somebody who combines himself as a lawyer, because most of us view lawyers as thieves and liars, and at the same time he's a public figure, like he was into politics when he was in South Africa. The most fascinating thing about Gandhi, in my opinion, is the fact that not only did he read books about Hinduism and all of that, he was open to other religions. Reading this book, I was fascinated to see he quoted a couple of texts from Jesus, from the Bible, and he mentioned other spiritual entities which he had read of. He wasn't a stigmatized person in terms of other religions. He encouraged people to be united in spite of their religion, so we could agree on everything even though we're not on the same religion, and we could live in the same place and respect each other's privacy in terms of their religious beliefs and everything. And today, when I read through this book, it just got me thinking about the world today with the proliferation. I'm sorry. With the proliferation of churches and different denomination, Protestants and all of that, and also religions as well. It looks like the world is more divided than united. You know, everybody wants to say that their religion is the most, how can I say it, acceptable or the most valid religion. And we focus too much on what the religion is and ignore the major principles in each religion. If you look at most of the religions of the world, they preach the same things: love, peace, forgiveness, living in harmony and stuff like that. But most people ignore the main principles of these religions, and they go on fighting each other because they don't believe the same God. And even people in the same religions fight each other based on their doctrines. Some people bow down to idols, others don't. Some people do this, others don't. And it completely eradicates the aim of a religion. And that's one thing I loved about Mohammed's book. It really touched on the idea of incorporating every single person into a country. There are so many lessons to get from this book. I remember when I was reading the book, I was like, man, what am I going to make a video about? Because I can make a video about every single thing in the book. So without further ado, let's go into the lessons I learned from reading Mohandas Gandhi's The Essential Gandhi, and let's go there now. So the first lesson I learned from reading this book is that willful service is the best service. Yes, willful service is the best service. What does that mean? It basically means that when you do something because you want to, not because you were coerced or forced or cajoled into doing it, that's the best form of service. And there are two examples I got from this book in terms of this willful service Muhammad spoke of. So his father was sick at a certain point and he was somewhat bedridden and he needed somebody to take care of him. Now, if you've been with somebody who has a terminal disease or somebody who is paralyzed or in a very critical condition, you should understand what it means to take care of this person, and they need extreme care. Mohammed explains that it's not just okay cleaning their wounds or helping them take them to the bathroom. It's the way you do it that actually makes the difference. If somebody feels like you're actually trying to help them and you're doing it out of love, out of care, they'll feel more cared for, they'll feel more appreciative of your service. If they feel like you're doing it out of obligation and you actually hate what you're doing, you make them feel more miserable. They feel like they're a burden to you and it doesn't help their situation. So that's what he meant by willful service is the best service, because it's a form of healing to the person who is going through that situation. And the second example he gave of willful service being the best service is that while he was in India, he and the committee where they had to get a farm where people came and volunteered to work and live. So in the farm, he made a statement that he didn't oblige people to do work on the farm. So each person did the work that they thought they could do at the time that they thought they could do it. And the second lesson I learned from reading this book is that knowledge has to sink into the heart for it to be effective. I think this goes particularly to some of us who read a lot, because when you read a lot, it's easy for you to read a book. I can read this book as fast as I want, but that really doesn't matter because you're actually gaining knowledge, but it doesn't help you in the experience of the world. I'm just going to read a quote from this book that explains it perfectly for Muhammad. Knowledge which stops at the head and does not penetrate into the heart is of but little use in the critical times of living experience. So what Muhammad means here is that if you gain knowledge and it doesn't sink into your heart, that means you don't accept it. You don't internalize that knowledge. It won't be that beneficial to you in living life, in experiencing life, because you gain knowledge so you can use it in your life and benefit yourself. But if you don't internalize whatever you're getting and make it your own, it actually will not be beneficial to you. So for instance, if I read all this book and I cannot internalize all the lessons in the book, however, I can pick a single message that resonates most with me and I feel like will be beneficial to me in my life, and I internalize that. For instance, right now the message that really resonates with me after reading this book is the message of service. The message of service. So that has, when I read the book, that's what has been like in my mind, in my heart, it's been active. So now when I want to perform a service to somebody, I try to make it a service that I want to do and not just a service that I'm doing out of obligation or out of coercion or because I'm trying to create an image. I do it because I want to and not because somebody wants me to. So yes, whatever knowledge you get, whether it's in school, at work, in the community, or from reading the book, it should be internalized in you. If you have that conviction about it, you really believe it, that's when it will really be beneficial in your life experience. Okay, now the third lesson I got from reading this book, that you should hate the sin and not the sinner. After reading this, I was like, what? Hate the sin and not the sinner? Because I personally am very guilty of hating the sin and the sinner, especially the sinner even more than the sin. Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that. And Gandhi explains that no man is perfect. We are all flawed, regardless. Even he himself as a human being, he gave experiences where he was flawed and he failed. Like every other human being, we are flawed. But notice that we are so quick to judge and condemn other people. We don't even give them the opportunity to express themselves, explain themselves, or even repent. we are so quick to judge them and castigate them. But Muhammad says, no, there's no need for us to do that, because we are all that way. We are all sinful. We are all full of mistakes. And yes, but what if we forget about the person who committed the sin and we focus on the sin itself? For instance, if somebody stole something from you, rather than you saying that you hate this person because of what this did, just it's better, it's more logical to say you hate what they did, because somebody whom you love dearly, it's hard for you to like hate and love them at the same time. But you could admit that you still love this person, however you detest what they did. There's a higher probability that somebody else will get there and do the same thing. So we should focus on what is wrong and not on who is wrong. If we focus on castigating the sin and making it so evil that nobody else wants to do it, then we will actually solve the problem, because the problem is the sin, not actually man. I hope that makes sense. Yes. And yeah, these are the lessons, the three major lessons I got from this book that I wanted to talk about. And it's a book that, like I said, it's not a quick read. It's not one of the books that I pick up usually and read fast. You have to read and meditate on it, because there are a lot of sensitivities in the book. There's a lot to unpack. If you haven't gotten a copy, I'm going to put the link in the description box. Just get a read, because like most people, I had heard of Muhammad, I had never really read his work. Yeah, I did a few searches on Wikipedia and blah blah blah, but there's a difference between reading a story somebody wrote by themselves, because he wrote it, but then reading what others think of him. So I always like to read autobiographies, because it's the author telling you about himself and not necessarily somebody else recounting their lives. Because when they tell their stories, they tell it the way they experience it, and nobody else can tell that story better than them. Thank you very much if you subscribe. Thank you so much for always watching this video. You know, life sometimes becomes tough and life sometimes becomes extremely busy, but when I see that you keep coming back to watch my videos, it's motivation, so to speak, for me to keep doing it. Because there are times I'm like, I'm too busy, I won't be able to read the book and put out a video, but just the fact that you keep coming back, I feel like I'm touching a life. And if I can touch one person with each lesson I give from a book, for me that's enough. And I'm going to just keep doing this for as long as God gives me the grace to. So thank you for staying here this week, and hopefully I will be able to get out another video next week.